Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Well, my friends, I will tell you, there's some tough things in entrepreneurship. One of the tough things is leadership. A tougher thing than leadership is teaching and coaching and consulting on leadership. But I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mike Desjardins. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on.
I put a little French flair on your name.
You nailed it. I was actually really curious how you're going to pronounce it. So I anglicized it as Desjardins, but it is really Desjardins. That is the
There you go. And I know that you're in Vancouver. You're not in Montreal, so you're on the other side of Canada. You know, the Montrealers, they would just skewer me no matter how I said it.
Yeah, I'm just north of Seattle.
Fantastic. So please tell us a little bit about the backstory. What was the professional journey that brought you to the work that you're doing today? And what were some interesting stops along the way?
I have the least likely professional journey to be in this business. I did a Bachelor of Commerce degree in marketing at UBC, University of British Columbia, here in Vancouver. And in second year, I got picked up by a company who offered to pay the rest of my business degree if I agreed to when I graduated to work with them for the same number of years as they paid for my education. And so I signed that deal, and I worked 30 hours a week in third year and almost 40 hours a week in fourth year. Graduated and hit the road as a road warrior doing sales and marketing across Canada, and then ended up being across North America. And grew a company up to a certain size. It was part of a group of companies, and pitched that I should be the VP of sales and marketing for the entire consolidated brands of companies. And the CEO is like, well, I'm not letting go of the VP of sales, as you've recommended, since the company had been flat in revenue for 5 years overall. And you are now the VP of marketing and new customer acquisition. I'm like, that's what I wanted. So that's fantastic. So I did that job for a while. And then one of the other divisions, the president left, and they were really struggling to find a president. So I threw my hat in the ring and said, listen, I started in that company. I know everybody there. Help grow that. Can I be president of that company? And the CEO said, well, you're never going to you're never going to be able to run the whole thing unless I give you something to run that's smaller than the whole thing. So sure, starting Monday, you're president. Okay. And so I took that company, which was a company that manufactures pool and spa chemicals for water parks, for home usage, water slides, anything that basically you swim in. We made a product that went in the water. And I created an entire organic line of products, which nobody had ever done before, that was biodegradable. And we took that across North America. And then one day, 4.5 years later, I was in La Jolla, California, and I needed to be in a meeting in Anaheim. And I woke up and I blacked out. And I fell on the floor, and I just could not function. And it took me 3 days to kind of get myself back to functioning again. And I realized that at the age of 27, I was completely burnt out. I had been on this crazy ride since the time I was really 19. And on paper, I'd built this incredible life. I had a great job, salary, car, place I lived in. I had all the things. And I'd set this set of goals that I wanted to reach by the time I was 30. And now here I am, 27, and I've hit them all. And I don't like my life. And who do you complain to when you get all the goals, everything you wanted, and then I think that's like lyrics in a Billie Eilish song now, actually. You're right, you get everything you want, and then it turns out that's not what you want. So I realized that I needed a different life. So I wrote a list that was supposed to be a top 10 list of the things my life was going to have in it. And David, they were things like see my friends and family more than once a quarter, stop forwarding my home phone to my cell phone so that people don't know where I am and will call me, because I was just away 3 weeks a month, traveling throughout North America, hold down a relationship, walk to work, like really, live downtown Vancouver. At the time, I lived in the city, Richmond, which is very close to the airport because it's very convenient when I was flying all the time. So the things I wanted to have were really just what I think most people would think of as normal life things. I didn't have those things. And so I went on an exploration to try to figure out what that would be. And the very last thing I thought I would do is a startup. I looked at a whole bunch of jobs being presidents of other companies with equity. And then one day I ended up doing a startup instead. So I got together with 3 partners, and this was in October of 2000, in a space of leadership development, something that I had always loved and had been a student of since I was really before even university, and had read everything I could get my hands on. And I thought, well, I can go build a company. I can build a great culture in this company, and I can build a great life. And I want to go do those things. Through that time, my dad had been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's disease. And I was, it started when I was 24, and he got properly diagnosed when I was 26, and he would have been 56. And so he died at 62. So I'm at 26 looking at my dad and thinking, oh my God, if this happens to me, I'm middle-aged. So this was part of this burnout of like this reconciliation of life. And it led me to realize, like, I don't really understand values and what I do value. And so the start of the business was, what do I really value? What life do I want to live? I haven't been an entrepreneur before. I was 28 when this started. Like, I felt really young. And then as I got into it, I felt like, oh God, I feel really old to start. I wish I would have started this even earlier. And that was really the impetus of the start of the business.
Wow. Holy smokes. So leadership development, like, when you think startup, most people think, oh, we're going to start like a tech company, or we're going to start like a pool chemical company. We're going to start some manufacturing deal. We're going to do some innovative, super high flying thing. Professional services, a world that you and I both know and love. That's a weird industry to have a startup in. What, between you and the other 3 partners, was this the only idea? Was this the best idea? Was this the first idea? How did y'all put your heads together? Just a quick background, Jeff Bezos, when he started Amazon, he said the internet and something. And then he finally decided it's the internet and books. That's how we started, right? The internet plus books. What was the thinking between the 4 of you?
Well, it's so 2 of the partners actually had started the business as kind of like a hobby. It wasn't an incorporated company yet, and I was actually a customer. So they had started these groups for CEOs to teach them, CEOs and entrepreneurs, to teach them leadership in groups, kind of like, I guess, what like a YPO or Young Entrepreneurs Entrepreneurs Organization, YPO, or Vistage would be today.
Yeah.
But they were looking at a different market than those organizations serve. So I was in one of the groups. And so one of the 2 people that came up with the idea was actually my dad's business partner in the business that my dad had actually cashed out of. Yeah. So I was going to join Vistage. He's like, hey, Lance has started this business. It's just like Vistage. Why don't you join Lance? So it's through that exploration, through the burnout, that one day I turned to Lance and I said, hey, like, you've got this thing. You could turn this into a business. Like, it's kind of a hobby for you. You've cashed out. You don't want to do another business anymore. But I really think there's something here. Like, you just need to remember to bill us and like send invoices and like things like that. Maybe market. And he called me 2 weeks later and he said, listen, if you think this is such a good idea as a business, then why don't you turn it into a business and I'll be your business partner. And I have 2 other people that I think could be part of this. And so that was really the 4 of us coming together and putting in 25 grand each to start this off. And then I bought out Lance and one of the other partners in 2003, and I bought out my last business partner in 2008. And so the first probably like 6 years, the goal was actually to build a business that had these groups of forums of CEOs and entrepreneurs all over North America. And as we were building it up, and I was on my way to Toronto, which is in the east coast of Canada, not different province, but closer to Montreal, since you referenced Montreal. And I was going to be flying back to fly to Seattle and start the chapter in Seattle. And all of a sudden I realized I'm doing it again. I'm right back on the road. And one of the tenets of that list of top 15 things was I'm only going to travel for fun. I'm not going to travel for work unless it's super fun. This wasn't fun. And so I decided to look at what was 10% of our business, which was these CEOs would sometimes ask us, hey, you're helping me, but I got an executive team that needs help. I need help with our strategic planning. I need help with leaders at our VP, our director, our manager, our high potential. Could you come into our company and help us? And that was maybe 10% of our revenue in 2006. So I wrote a new business plan to pivot the business into that work and to let go of this subscription-based business that was causing me to be traveling all the time, and really started to shift that. Going into 2008, I buy out my business partner in March. Same month, I meet my now wife and mother of my daughter. And so as I buy out my business partner, not knowing that I'm buying out my business partner in March of 08, I don't know what's about to happen in September of 08. And so for those of you playing the home game, there's a giant recession that occurred. And so that was interesting to be pivoting the business's revenue, moving away from subscription-based revenue, moving into this new place where it's a larger project-based revenue. It doesn't have a long tail factor to it. At first it didn't. And so that was a very interesting place to be, September of 08 all the way through until 2010 was quite the ride to survive all of that.
Oh my gosh, for sure. And some would even say going into 2011, actually, because it was until we get back on the crazy footing.
It felt like 2012 was the year where I felt stable again.
Yes, exactly. Hang on. Let's back up the truck. Beep, 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 beep. Listen, I have a brand new sales book out there. You got to get your hands on it. It is awesome. It is amazing. It is fantastic. It is useful, practical, actionable, and a ton of bonuses are waiting for you over at doitselling.com. Grab your copy right now and grab all the bonuses, goodies, companion tools, and downloads that go with the book. You'll love it. I guarantee it. Let's talk about sales and selling, because obviously there has to be a sales engine and there has to be sort of an ongoing sales capability and competency. Initially, when you came in, I'm guessing it was founder-led sales, right? It's like, hey, it's the Mike show. Mike is our biz dev guy. He's the CRO, the CSO, the sales rep. He is the BDR, the SDR. He's all the DRs. Talk about what you did to generate leads and sales conversations. And then let's fast forward to today, where you really have this kind of state-of-the-art B2B lead gen and very involved sales process. But take us back to the good old days when it was the Mike show.
Yeah, man, it really was. So the challenge, honestly, Dave, is I hired 5 people to come in and do commission-based sales to help us to convince CEOs, the original business, right? To convince CEOs and executives to join these peer groups. And they had an average closing rate of 16%. And my closing rate when I got involved was 60%. And so what it turned out is my job as the part of the 3, there's 4 partners or 4 total, I was managing partners. So people wanted to talk to me and they didn't want to talk to somebody who was a salesperson, right? Effectively, because they're a CEO or they're a very senior executive, right? And so I realized, okay, I need to drive this sales engine until I can figure out how somebody else can get up to that kind of closing rate, or even 40% would have been great, but 16 is not good. One of the challenges of a business like that is that you have attrition of people in the groups. So if you've got 10 people in a group and throughout the first year, 2 of them drop, well, now you have to backfill 2 of those people. So, 20% attrition rate sounds fine. But when you get up to 1,000 members, now a 20% attrition rate is 200 new CEOs and executives just to stay even. So close rate matters a lot when replacement is happening, because we were still trying to figure out like what our value equation was and how to deliver value that would keep people for the very long term. Pricing mattered a lot. So we realized that our highest drop off was on people that were paying monthly. Our next highest drop off was on people that were paying quarterly, and our very lowest drop off was people that were paying annually. And what the recognition was is that when people would look at an entire year, when they saw the bill come in and they say, I learned a lot this past year. Somebody who came in quarterly or paid quarterly would say, oh, you know what? 2 of the 3 meetings weren't like stellar. I'm not sure I'm getting value out of this. People paying monthly. Last month wasn't great. I think I'm out. So we moved all of our pricing to annually, only annually, and you had to pay in advance. And so that really helped to shift the attrition rate down. So I continued to do this founder-led sales thing, and then I realized that this is my life now, and I have to travel and try to figure out how to get Seattle and Toronto up and running. Who's going to do the sales there? I'm going to need partners in those places who are, ostensibly have the same type of role. So that was the structure as it was. Now, when it went to doing the deals where we're selling strategic planning or leadership development within companies in the pivot, that was a different type of sales because I'm selling to one person who's bringing a whole bunch of revenue versus selling to one person who's spending like $6,000 to $8,000 with us. I'm talking to one person who's spending 25 to whatever, right? It's grown to a much bigger numbers now. And so I saw, okay, it's the same person. It's literally the same CEO or same executive, but this person's now going to spend at least 4 times to 5 times in the same conversation I'm having with them. So that was the kind of trick of like, I'm getting out of this business and then we're going to go into this business instead.
Right.
And so, so that was where the structure was. What I will say retrospectively is that marketing was, even though I had my major was in marketing in my business degree, that's not where I put all the time and energy. And I actually regret that. When I look back, the founder-led sales thing is a bit of a trap. It's a trap because there's a juice that comes with closing the deal, with getting the sale, with being in relationship. I wasn't doing the work itself, so I wasn't one of those founders that is selling it and also having to deliver on it. There was teams of people delivering on it. And at the same time, if I'm not selling, the business isn't growing. And the leads are coming from my own personal network and connections. And then I read The Tipping Point, and Malcolm Gladwell was like, talked about these people called connectors, and then people called super connectors. And I'm like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm a good salesperson and I'm a maven for some specific things. A salesperson is somebody that's good at helping people figure out that this thing is good for them and so they should buy it. Maven is somebody that you go to and it's like, oh, my Mac's broken again. Oh, David's the Mac guy. I'm just call David. I'm not even going to bother going to Apple because Dave will just know the answer. That's a maven. Right. And a connector is somebody, one of those people when you say, well, how do you know all these people? And you're like, well, actually, David actually introduced me to all these people. But everyone says that about David. And so that's a good connector, super connector that just has these amazing networks. And so I realized, okay, if I'm going to keep doing this founder-led sales, I better become a connector or a super connector. So I started asking people, who do you know that's really well connected? And they'd say, well, the most connected person I know, like this person's awesome, is this person. So then I would call that person up. It turns out they're really nice. Of course, right? They have lots of friends. People are magnetized to them. They really want to help. So right away, they start thinking about people they could introduce you to. And they're just great at being in a relationship. So I'm like, wait, I get to hang out with people like this? This is awesome. So I asked the really big connectors, who's a super connector? Like, who do you think? Everybody tells me you're super connected, like 3 different people. Who do you think? I'm not. And they're like, no, I'm not. Let me tell you who's connected. So I'm like, oh, would you introduce me to that person? Oh, yeah, of course. And so I built this group of connectors and super connectors. And then one day I realized I'm having lunch with like a dozen of them a month. And it's probably not that efficient. Also, they don't all know each other. So I wrote them all an email and I said, listen, you're all either super connectors or connectors. You don't all know each other, but I meet with you all once a month and I referenced all of you. Would you all like to get together monthly for an hour and a half for breakfast? We're all in B2B. We're all doing different things. Maybe we could help each other grow our businesses. Let's just try it for 3 months. And if it doesn't work, cool. There's no money. I'm not asking for anything. It's literally, we're just going to get together for breakfast and see if we can help each other grow our B2B businesses as founders and CEOs. 3 months turned into 14 years.
And so that's your kind of informal super connector network.
Yeah. And now, of course, I sunset that group this past year because all the businesses have gone like incredibly well, and we all have other people doing revenue generation in our businesses now. So we after 14 years, which is wild when I say that out loud, that it went on that long because it was a 3-month trial. Decided to sunset that last summer, and so that was one of the modalities. So that worked really well. And
Mike, those folks, I'm guessing obviously you got together, so they were all local in the same metropolitan area.
They are. We moved it to Zoom in the pandemic, and that opened up my eyes of like, oh, well, actually, you don't need to be in the same metropolitan area. You could be anywhere. You just have to be a connector or super connector, because the multiplication factor of bringing those types of people together in a room, we're just wired to help each other. And have the types of connections where not the kind of person who has 5,000 people on their LinkedIn, but no one will call them back. The person that has 5 to 10,000 people on LinkedIn, and when they call somebody, people are like, "Oh yeah, how can I help you?" That's the person I was connecting with.
Now, I just want to dig one more level into this, because people listening are like, "I am totally doing this idea. Mike is a genius. Why didn't I think of this?" When you're saying, "Hey, David, you're a connector. You know a lot of people. Who should I be connected to? Would you be wonderful enough to introduce me?" My template for that, or my framework for that, is, hey, quick note to introduce 2 awesome people. Mike, please meet Sally. Sally, please meet Mike. Mike is Sally is I'll let the 2 of you take it from here. Now we get on the call. I'm like, "Hi, I'm not sure what this is about. Who are you? How can I help you?" So obviously you didn't do it that way. You did it a smarter way. What is the smarter way, please?
There's a secret to this that I learned really quickly, and it changes everything. It really changed everything. Okay, so the secret is this. You're not asking for the introduction. I'm asking you, David, could you go to your friend and ask for permission to introduce us? And then I send you a blurb that says who I am and why I want to talk to your friend. Now you send an email to your friend saying, "I'd like to introduce you to my friend Mike. Here's who he is. Here's why I want to introduce the 2 of you, but I'm actually asking you for your permission to make the introduction." Now that person says, "Yes, I'm open to this introduction." Fantastic. Now you send the email saying, "Introducing the 2 of you." I reply back and I say, let's say the person's name is Kim. Kim, thank you so much for being open to this introduction. David speaks very highly of you. I'm very curious to learn about your organization and what you're doing with respect to leadership development in 2024, 2025. And I'd love to share with you some of the big programs that we've done for major enterprise organizations around North America and what we've seen change significantly in the last 4 years. So hook. And then, so you know a little bit about who we are when we chat, and so we can focus more on you. Here's a quick video that explains who we are. And I have a 2-minute explainer video that is just me talking, that is overly gushy, and you could never do on Zoom because people will be like, "Okay, we get it. You're a big deal. You've done it all." But in a Zoom, but in a little video, that's what people expect. And then it's trackable. So we use Vidyard. You can use Loom, doesn't matter. But I can see that the person has actually watched the video. So now when I get on the call, they're like, one, they feel like they've already met me because they've already seen me on video. So it's our second call. 2, they absolutely know that we are the real deal and have credibility and can deliver on our promises. They've probably gone to the website as a result of this as well. And I don't have to go into a whole thing talking about the company. I can ask about their company. Now, I've also done my research on their company, on everything I can find online. And so now the conversation is more steered towards the person and their needs and their pain points. And so that has been kind of the magic formula in asking for introductions. And that video I learned from a gentleman by the name of Simon Bowen, who is from Australia, and he's very good at visual sales processes and those sorts of things. And so that's where I learned that technique.
Totally fantastic. So Simon is not with us right now in the studio, but I am not only a huge Simon fan, I'm also a Simon client.
Okay. Well, there you go. Simon
So-
and I both belong to an organization called MMT, Mastermind Talks.
Yes. Totally
Simon.
fantastic. Now, you did just drop some 7-figure gold right there. However,
Yeah.
that wasn't my question. That is a beautiful prospecting, referral generation introduction. I'm asking about the introduction to the super connectors. Where they might not be a prospect, but they're someone that has a huge Rolodex. What does that introduction, hey, Mike meet Kim, Kim meet Mike, you both know a tremendous amount of people, maybe you can help each other. And again, that's my very brutalist, it's probably a smarter way to do that introduction as well. How should that one work?
That one's actually easier, honestly, than the one I just described to you. The reason is that in the one I just used as an example, it is a potential client relationship that the introduction is being made for. Getting introduced to a connector or a super connector, you need to have an ask, like, why? Like, what is the reason that you want to be introduced to this person? And so, for instance, if it was, I want to do business in Minneapolis. Okay, I don't know anybody in Minneapolis. And my friend knows Connector in Minneapolis. So Mike's from Vancouver. He's a great guy. I've known him 20 years. He's expanding his business across North America. He really sees that there's a booming tech population in Minneapolis. He does a lot of work with tech companies across North America. You're really well connected in Minneapolis, and so he's just trying to make some connections with great people. Would you be open to a 15-minute conversation with Mike? All those conversations go at least an hour, and one of the key things that I ask in those conversations is, how can I help you? What's your biggest thing that you want to achieve in the next 12 months? Like, if we're back together a year from now and we're celebrating this big thing that you've achieved, what is it that you've achieved? And when the connector tells me what it is, right away, my brain goes to my Rolodex, like, who do I know who can help that person achieve this? Or what story can I share of this last 24-year journey that I've been on that might be useful or helpful? What book have I read? What podcast have I listened to recently? And then when I follow up the email, I follow up right away. I send the resources. I make the connection for them. I thank them, for taking the time to out of their schedule to chat with me. And I don't try to create any sort of artificial next connect, or we should get together regularly, because that's just annoying. It has to be value driven. Like, how can I create value for that person, or how is that person able to help me with something that they have that's valuable? And the reality is, I'll tell you, David, what I've learned about connectors and super connectors is that they have a people pleaser quality to them. And part of what gives them joy in life is that they've figured out how to help another person. Now, the smart ones are, as Adam Grant wrote a great book called Givers and Takers, or Givers. And he talks about being giverish. He said, people that are takers in life have no off button. They will just keep taking. People that are givers also don't have an off button. They just want to give because that's how they're wired. Super connectors and connectors are wired that way, but the really good ones are giver-ish. They give with boundaries in a way that works for them so that they can do it for a lot of people in the timeframes that work for them. And they're very strategic about it, so that they don't give too much of their self up in that process. So I never want to ask somebody that I just met an ask that's bigger than the relationship that we currently have, because it's not appropriate. And I haven't done anything for them yet.
Right. Absolutely. So good, Mike. Holy smoke. So I just want to recap a couple of quick things. Number one, the introductions are double opt-in, right?
Yes.
The intro's coming. I'm going to ask my friend Kim. I'm going to check with Kim privately. Kim says yes. Then I do the connection.
Yes.
Sounds like there are 2 blurbs that you send. One blurb is, hey, Kim, would you like to meet my friend Mike? That's the permission blurb. Then the second blurb you provide is the actual introduction blurb when you've gotten the green light. Also, the last thing that you mentioned, I think, is important in this sort of helping situation. One person is clearly identified as the helper. A lot of people in Minneapolis. The other person is clearly identified as the helpee. Mike would like to grow his network in Minneapolis, but then when you get on the call, you are sure to reciprocate. And
Flip the
your
script.
main goal is not only to get the help, but to be of radical generosity and radical service to the helper as well.
Yes, 100%. And people are usually surprised by that. Yeah, just in general, people are surprised that has happened. But yeah, you definitely need to flip the script and go in with that. Now, that requires research of that person in advance to kind of get a sense of what their world is. Look on LinkedIn, look what they're posting about, look what they're asking questions about, review their website, try to figure out what's going on in their space in advance. Like, be prepared for that call.
For sure.
Going in cold, if you're meeting somebody that is taking up their time, that doesn't know you, that's a connector, that's a friend of your friend, is super disrespectful if you're not prepared for that call.
Could not agree more. Could not agree more. Let me ask you just kind of a rapid fire series of questions. And for this next one, I want all the HR people to be angry at me. Be angry at David Newman. Do not be angry at Mike. So, Mike, you have the CPHR designation, which is the Canadian PHR. We think leadership development, some people, inexperienced people, think that, oh, we sell leadership development and training and coaching to HR leaders inside target companies. Have you ever had any success selling any significant size deals to HR people versus line managers and C-suite?
It's mostly chief people officers, directors of talent, and directors of HR. That's our key client.
You're kidding me. Are you serious?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they have the budgets. So the budgets are consolidated into, like most large organizations have either a head of talent and learning or leadership development globally for North America by the country. And they're responsible for an overall succession planning and talent development framework for the organization. So they have a large budget. Now, they may be getting chargebacks from those line managers. So those line managers may have to pay for people to go to this program. But the cost is very low for them because it's being spread out over the whole organization. Some organizations do it differently, where they don't do chargebacks to the individual divisions, so the leaders don't have to pay for those leaders to go in. It will usually start with either the CEO, the chief people officer, CHRO, or the VP or director of talent, learning, development, somebody with that kind of title. They actually have the budget sign off as well. Now, interestingly, I will say that the CEO's budget for developing the executive team is usually a budget that the CEO controls. Whereas the chief people officer or the head of talent and learning will have a budget that is organizationally wide, and they will control that budget for the whole organization. The line manager, so let's talk about divisional managers, divisional leaders, presidents, they will have what's called a business partner, an HR business partner that's assigned to them, and that is technically reports to them, but has a dotted line relationship back to the head of HR for the whole organization. That president will have the ability to do things with their HR business partner inside their division. But the first thing they have to do is check to see that there already isn't a master program running for the whole company before they go and bring a different vendor, different partner, new relationship, different content, different models, different theories, different practical approaches, when there's already a whole thing set up for the organization.
Yes, I know. Terrific episode here, but have you seen our latest web training? Oh my goodness, pop over there right now, or as soon as you're done listening to this episode, it's doitmarketing.com/webinar. See you over there. Back to the good stuff. How do you position the brilliance that you and your team deliver versus their in-house L&D, their in-house training department? Because they have like leadership 101 and, senior leadership, strategic thinking. And, there's corporate universities that are in-house. Obviously, what you do is a supplement and a complement and a huge amplifier of that. How do you show up on their radar where it's not competing with that internal L&D function?
It's a great question. The reality is, David, that most L&D departments are actually significantly understaffed, like far more understaffed than most people might realize. So even enterprise-wide $100 million organizations might have 4 or 5 people. So how are $100 billion companies going to with 4 or 5 people going to deliver learning and development across an organization with a couple hundred thousand, couple hundred thousand employees. It's not reasonable to expect that.
Yeah.
So what they're doing, and they may have a master's in leadership, they may have an MCC level coach, so they may have all the street cred to do it, but the volume that's required, it's just untenable. So what they're looking for is, and what we do is we're like, listen, your team just got a lot larger. So there's 4 of you, there's 5 of you. We bring our entire company in and say, like, your team just got bigger. Let's partner together. There's certain things you can do internally. It's way easier for you to do them internally. But there's certain things that we can do for you that we said so much horsepower to, like scheduling, logistics, custom content development, interviewing leaders to get practical examples and case studies, building out a custom roadmap. Like, if they take the next year to do that, they can launch the program next year. We can have it ready in 60 days.
So the positioning is you're really a bolt-on leadership development department.
Yes, for the organization. Yeah.
Amazing.
And so we have, in one case, there's a restaurant group in Canada that's really quite well known in Canada called Cactus Club. They would be similar to like Houston's group would be in the US. And we have been working with them for 17 years now. And we run something there called Cactus University, which you would think of as their internal university, except we run it. We developed it, we designed it, we update it, we run the whole thing. We support logistics, scheduling, reminders, all the participant emails, materials, like all of that stuff is all done by us at Virtus. And so really we are looking for organizations that want to do great things and then say, well, we can do these small things and do them really well. And if we want to reach a lot of leaders, what's that phrase? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Right. This is what they're coming to us for. They're like, we've never partnered with anyone that is able to come in. And the thing that's unique about us when we do this work is that we really take a lot of time to customize this so that it feels like it was made for them, by them, in a super practical way, to the point where the leaders who are in the programs are like, how do you know all this stuff about our company? And how do you know all these acronyms mean? Like, all these cases and examples, these happen all the time. Like, when we interviewed people in your company, the second thing that happens is that the likelihood to recommend, our NPS scores, are incredibly high. They're always in the 9s. And the third thing is that this partnership that we make with the leadership development people that are in charge of leadership development for the company, they only use the word like in terms of our partnership for about the first month or so. And then they start using the word love. And I hear back, my team loves working with your team. I have a team full of emotionally intelligent, highly collaborative people that love doing this work. So imagine that you're in relationship with highly emotionally intelligent, very good collaborators who love doing this thing. That's what we bring to the company, and that's who they get to collaborate with. And so these relationships for us go on 5, 10, as I said, 17, a very long time. As these organizations grow, we grow and change what we do within those organizations. And we are working with different leaders. Leaders are leaving, new leaders are being hired, people are being promoted. There's always change from a leadership perspective that we can support.
Amazing. Well, tell me a little bit, because I know you have a very sophisticated sort of lead generation and B2B sales system to reach these HR leaders, yes, talent leaders, learning and development leaders. How does that work? And kind of give us just the high level summary of what the playbook looks like.
Sure. So we haven't, we just finished an acquisition, and part of the acquisition is bringing over a very significant email newsletter list that is helping to support both open enrollment and also just keeping us top of mind with all those clients. But I have a podcast called The Mike Method. And so I'm bringing on guests that are from our space, and we're just talking about leadership in conversation. We're not talking about Virtus. If they're a client, I'm not going to bring that up. We're just going to talk about what these really brilliant people who've devoted their life to help build great leaders, what they know about leadership. So that helps. And then we work with a company called Leadosaurus, and Leadosaurus is a cold email marketing provider. So they've helped us find our ideal client in our ideal organization. And then we have crafted a very compelling message that is sent to those organizations. And 1.7% of the people that we email actually reply back and say they would like to schedule a meeting with us. 80% of the people that say they would like to schedule a meeting actually schedule and attend a meeting with us. So once they read and go to our website and they're like, okay, yes, we see what you can do. We want to talk to you. I think the messaging has worked really well, because the most common feedback we get is, I get a lot of these cold email reach outs from companies that want to do exactly what you want to do with us. And I only reply to yours because of the message.
And what do you think is the secret sauce or the secret DNA? If you can just generalize that to any professional services firm, what are the building blocks of that compelling message?
The firm, Leadosaurus, the CEO, Martin Addy, he interviewed myself and a couple other people and said, tell me the five biggest pain points that your customers are facing right now. Something that is like, they just talk about it so much, they wish they could solve it. And so the message is crafted around those 5 pain points. And then we also provide examples. We have some pretty cool clients with some pretty recognizable brands. And so we'll say, do you want to know what companies like Enbridge, Lush, right? Like what they're doing to drive enterprise leadership development, we can share those stories with you. So right away, they're like, oh, those are cool brands. Yes, I am curious to know what those brands are up to. And if it's industry specific, then we'll be industry specific about the client examples that we share. And so really, I think it's the pain point. If I was to pick of those two, though, I would see the pain points is the real thing that gets people responding to us. We also know in our space why our space sucks. We know why generally our competitors, we know what most people complain about our competitors. So we also put those things in there because we recognize that, and we pattern the company around not doing the things that everybody finds annoying about our space. We do it differently in a way that takes those annoyances away. So we talk about that as well. People are like, oh, no one's ever said that before. You're going to customize cases and examples, and you're not going to push some bulk training program that you built that you just want everybody to buy. That's not the business that you're doing. Oh, no one's offering me that. It's hard to scale a business like that. And it turns out everybody wants to talk to us because of that.
Really amazing. And then the sales process itself, a lot of times, of course, we talk to enterprise sales, large corporate sales. Oh, it takes 6 months. Mike, it's going to take a year for us to sign a deal. How long are your sales cycles, and what have you done to shorten them?
It just does take that long. I mean, the reality is this, right? Like, so people have budgets, they are set annually, they're use it or lose it. So if they don't use up their entire budget, they'll potentially get a smaller budget next year. And so they're keen to make sure they use all the dollars they have allocated. If you're outside the budgeting schedule, which for governmental organizations, most of their budgeting is happening between January and the end of March, because their fiscal usually starts in April. If it is a corporation, you'll see a lot of budgeting done in the fall, kind of the October, November timeframe. So knowing those cycles, getting into conversation with people, if it's January 1st, their budget's locked in and they may have already decided who their partner is going to be, we have to then be in relationship with them for an entire year, building trust, showing our expertise, providing resources all the way around until the next budget cycle comes around. Our sales process works where when we get the lead or the person is interested in chatting with us, whether it's a referral, whether it's a repeat customer, whether it's a brand new customer from our prospecting and lead generation, the first meeting we have with them is just to scope out whether or not this is truly a client. So tell us what's going on, tell us what's happening, just but very high level and very casually, explain to us what's happening. Yeah. So after that, we listen and we're like, yeah, okay, we do think this is something we can help you with. And because I'm not trying to pitch them on a product, we're going to build something for them. We said the next step is we're going to set up a needs assessment call. So that's our next call, and it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour. And Adam, who's the head of business development, head of sales, head of business development here, has built a Miro board. And so for those of you who haven't used Miro, it's like a big whiteboard, and you can put Post-it notes on it and draw lines between it. And effectively imagine having a giant whiteboard in your office with Post-it notes on it, but then take that and stick it on Zoom. So that's basically what Miro and Mural are. So we have a Miro board, and it goes through, and on post-it notes, we are interviewing the client and then live typing on the post-it notes for them and moving them around and saying, this is what success looks like from your leadership development program. This is what you wish your leaders could do right now. This is what we're going to celebrate as success a year from now. This is how other stakeholders need to be engaged and involved and communicated with. These are the other people who need to be involved in making the decision to move this project forward. So we do a whole needs assessment to really deeply understand the audience and what the needs are of the audience. And then when that's done, we take that artifact, we PDF it, we send it to them. And we're like, cool, socialize that around. Socialize those pain points around with other leaders. And then they're going to then have a conversation, and you see what I'm doing, right? Like the more we talk about the pain points, the more people talk about it, the more like, we really do need to solve this. They get that back to us. Then we take that and we say, okay, we're going to now go and we're going to design what programs will give you the outcomes that you want.
And just to be clear, no money has changed hands yet.
No, this is just us. Yeah, nothing's happened. No money. This is not consulting. Yeah, we're doing this needs assessment at no charge. So then now we bring back a proposal and we say, this is how we think we can meet these needs. Here's what you've told us you want to solve. Here's the objectives that you have. Here's what success looks like. And here's what we're going to do to achieve that. Now, most of the proposal is their pain points, what they want. A small portion of it is how we're going to do it. And then there are numbers that have add-ons to them, but they're big numbers. And we don't charge per hour or per day, nothing like that. Right. We don't say, oh, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll just keep adding to the bill. We say, this is your fixed number for the year to accomplish this. And if you want to add on coaching, if you want to add on assessments, here's the price to do it per person. Very, very straightforward. And and then really it's a conversation. We already know the budget because they'll usually disclose to us a budget so that we can bring them something back that's within that budget. And then really it's getting the approvals done. And that can just take time of socializing it through making sure that if they've got to grab budget from other areas, they can. But it is a long sales cycle, David. It's like we're trying to shorten it. This process has helped a lot. The one I just described to you, it started in August of last year. So it's almost a year old now. And it's speeding up the sales process a little bit. Customers love it. Like they gush about it on the call, and it's a lot of fun to do because it's a conversation, and they'll say, oh man, I sounded like I rambled the whole time. I'm like, have you read the board though? And they're like, no, that's really coherent and clear. Yeah. And that's exactly what we need. But they didn't have to stress about it because they just got to just freeform talk, and we're capturing everything and putting it where it needs to go in the right place and helping to crystallize something that intuitively they know, but nobody's helped them put it down on paper in a way that it's like, oh yes, can you help me with that? That's exactly what I need.
Yeah. Wow. Really, really powerful. Well, you have so much intellectual property. You've got the blog, you've got the podcast, you have all your amazing curriculum development. I have to ask you, is there a book in your future? Are you working on a book? Are clients asking for the book? What's the deal with books?
It's sitting, the outline for the book is sitting in my email right now. So Steph, the CEO of the company that we just acquired, Steph Corker, who is the chief growth officer now, wrote the outline for the book. It's called The Mike Method, and it lines up with the podcast. And it is, what have I learned from being a leader really since I graduated from university, and then from having this unique opportunity over the last 24 years to be surrounded by simply phenomenal leaders. What have I learned from all of them? What are the things that really matter from a leadership perspective? And how do you drive culture in an organization? How do you develop people? And I think ultimately, David, how do you become that leader that when people reflect back, they say, David was my boss, I reported to him, but David was actually a mentor to me. I feel like that is the ultimate compliment that a leader could get, to be referred to by another as a mentor. So how do we go? And what I want to do around the world, our purpose is to create respectful, empathetic, and productive leaders who are aware of their impact on the world. And if I was to sum all that up, I just want to go build more mentors everywhere. Because if we had more mentor leaders around the world, that would fundamentally just completely change the world. So that's what we're up to.
Wow, there's no better way to land the plane than on those beautiful words. I know that our listeners, Mike, they're going to want to get connected and stay connected to more Mike Desjardins brilliance, more work from Virtus. Where can we send people? What links should we share in the show notes?
Yeah, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I post there pretty regularly. The Mike Method podcast is available on Spotify, literally everywhere you want to find a podcast. Just type in the Mike Method. It's the only one called that, so it will pop up. And our website, which is virtusinc.com, which I know you'll pop in the show notes here. Feel free to contact us there as well. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Chime in on LinkedIn, ask questions. Happy to answer them. Anybody that ever asks me a question, whether it's by email, on LinkedIn, whatever the format is, commenting on a podcast, I will always reply. It's me replying personally to the question that you ask.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you for sharing this amazing gift of an interview. You are awesome, and I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for your time, David.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.